You think discipline is about punishment, about rigid rules and cold precision, about denying yourself pleasure until life becomes a joyless march toward meaningless goals. Let me disabuse you of that comfortable delusion right now. Discipline isn't the cage you fear it to be. It's the wand you've been too foolish to pick up. It's the ancient magic hiding in plain sight while you chase shortcuts and quick fixes like first years, chasing chocolate frogs. I spent years in darkness, playing a role so dangerous that one misstep would have meant death. Not the dramatic, heroic kind. The quiet, unremarkable kind, where you simply stop existing and no one even knows why. Do you think I survived on talent alone, on natural gifts? Please, talent is the spark. Discipline is the fire that forges it into something that actually matters. And most of you, you're content to watch that spark flicker and die because feeding the flames requires something you're not willing to give. The truth no one wants to hear is this: your dreams are dying not because the world is cruel, not because you lack opportunity, but because you lack the spine to do what's necessary when no one is watching, when it's cold, when it's hard, when every fiber of your being screams to stop. The magic of discipline isn't some inspirational fairy tale. It's a choice you make in the dark over and over again until it becomes who you are. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what you've been missing. You want to know what's truly amusing. You call it freedom. This chaos you're living in, this beautiful, spontaneous existence where you do what you feel when you feel it, answering to no one but your precious impulses. You sleep when you're tired. You eat when you're hungry. You work when inspiration strikes. And you call this liberation. How utterly deluded. Let me tell you what I see. I see prisoners who've convinced themselves the bars don't exist. You're not free. You're enslaved to every passing whim, every fleeting emotion, every comfortable excuse your mind manufactures to keep you exactly where you are. The student who studies only when motivated isn't free to succeed. The artist who creates only when inspired isn't free to master their craft. They're hostages to circumstances they refuse to control. Real freedom, the kind that actually transforms your life, doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from doing what you must, especially when you don't want to. It comes from building systems so reliable that your worst day still moves you forward. Think about it. The musician who practices scales every morning, regardless of mood. They're free to play anything. He writer who puts words on the page whether the muse appears or not. They're free to tell any story. But you, waiting for the perfect moment, the right feeling, the ideal circumstances. You're trapped in a prison of your own making, and you don't even see the walls. I made potions in the dead of night while others slept, not because I loved it every single time, not because some mystical inspiration descended from the heavens, but because mastery demanded it. Because the next day's survival might depend on what I created in that moment. And here's the secret that will infuriate you. After enough repetition, after enough showing up when it hurt, discipline stopped being a burden. It became the very air I breathed. The choice disappeared. The resistance faded. What remained was simply who I was. That's the illusion you need to shatter. You think discipline will imprison you. The opposite is true. Your lack of it already has. Here's what separates the extraordinary from the utterly forgettable. They understand that magic isn't found in grand gestures. It's hidden in the monotonous, the repetitive, the seemingly insignificant actions that no one applauds. You're obsessed with transformation. You want the dramatic before and after, the explosive breakthrough, the moment everything changes. But you're looking in the wrong place. Every potion I ever brewed required precise measurements, exact temperatures, specific timing, missed by a degree, disaster, rush by a second, catastrophe. And yet the process itself, tedious, repetitive, utterly unremarkable to anyone watching. Stir counterclockwise 7 times. Wait. Add 3 drops, not 4. Wait again. This is where mastery lives, in the space between excitement and result, where most people quit because they can't see the magic happening. You want to write a book. The magic isn't in imagining yourself on a bestseller list. It's in writing 200 words before breakfast, every single morning. Even when those words feel like pulling teeth. You want to build a business. The magic isn't in the vision board. It's in sending one more email, making one more call, refining one more process when you're exhausted and uncertain and convinced it's all pointless. The compound effect of small actions, repeated with relentless consistency, creates results that look like overnight success to everyone who wasn't paying attention to the years of unglamorous work that preceded it. And here's the part that will either liberate you or crush you. Those small actions. They don't feel important in the moment. That's the test. Discipline demands you treat the trivial as sacred, the invisible as essential. To honor the process when there's no proof it's working, no validation, no applause. Most people need to see results before they commit to the work. Masters commit to the work and let the results take care of themselves. I didn't survive because I made one brilliant decision. I survived because I made 1,000 small, precise choices when no one was watching and the stakes were life and death. Your stakes might be different, but the principle remains. Stop waiting for the grand moment. Start treating this moment right now as if it matters, because it does. Let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? You despise discomfort. You've been raised in a world that promises you can have everything without suffering for anything. Comfort, convenience, instant gratification delivered to your door in 2 days or less. And somewhere along the way, you started believing that discomfort was a design flaw in your life, rather than the very furnace in which character is forged. I have news for you. Everything worth having lives on the other side of something you don't want to do. Everything. The body you want. It's on the other side of workouts that make your muscles scream. The skill you admire. It's on the other side of practice sessions, so boring they numb your mind. The respect you crave. It's on the other side of doing what's right, when doing what's easy would cost you nothing. Discomfort isn't the obstacle. It's the path itself. You know what I learned in the darkness. That pain is information, not punishment. When your mind rebels against the early morning, against the difficult conversation, against the hard work, it's not telling you to stop. It's showing you exactly where your growth lives. The resistance you feel, that's the border between who you are and who you could become. And most of you turn back at the first sign of friction, because you've forgotten that diamonds form under pressure, not in comfort. Here's the alchemy you're missing. Discipline trains you to reinterpret discomfort. What once felt like torture becomes proof you're in the right place. The burning in your lungs during a run transforms from a reason to quit into evidence you're expanding your capacity. The anxiety before a difficult task shifts from a warning sign into confirmation you're about to level up. This isn't about becoming numb to pain. It's about becoming fluent in its language, understanding what it's teaching you, instead of running from the lesson. Every single day, I wore a mask. I spoke words that tasted like poison. I played a role that required me to betray my own nature with every breath. Comfortable, never necessary. Absolutely. And the discipline to endure that discomfort, to walk into it again and again, created something unbreakable inside me. You think your morning routine is hard. Your diet requires sacrifice. Try living a double life for years, where one mistake ends everything. Perspective, perhaps, but the principle stands. You're far more resilient than you believe. And you'll never discover that truth in your comfort zone. Here's something that should terrify you. You are not a fixed entity. You're not born with an immutable character etched in stone. Every single day, with every action you take or avoid, you're building the person you're becoming. And most of you, you're building someone you won't respect, not through dramatic failures or catastrophic choices, but through 1,000 tiny surrenders you don't even notice anymore. You hit the snooze button. That's not just 10 more minutes of sleep. That's a brick in the foundation of someone who breaks promises to themselves. You skip the workout you planned. That's not just a missed session. That's evidence you're constructing someone whose words mean nothing. You scroll instead of create, procrastinate instead of produce, choose easy over important again and again and again. And each time you're casting a spell, writing code into your very identity that says, I am someone who cannot be trusted, even by myself. This is the architecture of identity that no one teaches you. Your actions aren't isolated events. They're votes for the type of person you are. Every time you do what you said you would, especially when it's difficult, you're voting for discipline, for reliability, for strength. Every time you don't, you're voting for chaos, for weakness, for someone who lives at the mercy of circumstances. And here's the brutal mathematics. You don't need a majority to change who you are. You just need consistency. The pattern you repeat most often wins. I became the person I needed to be by refusing to negotiate with myself. When I decided something mattered, it was done. Not when I felt like it. Not when it was convenient. When it needed to be done. And over time, that reliability became my identity. I didn't have to think about whether I'd follow through. The question never arose. That's not willpower. That's architecture. I built someone who doesn't require motivation because discipline is the foundation, not the decoration. You want to know who you really are. Don't listen to your intentions. Don't believe your aspirations. Look at your calendar. Look at your bank statement. Look at how you spent your last 72 hours when no one was watching. That's the truth. That's the person you've been building. And if you don't like what you see, good. That means you're finally ready to start demolishing the old structure and building something worthy of the life you claim you want. You're waiting for external circumstances to change, for the right opportunity, the perfect mentor, the ideal environment. Meanwhile, the real battle is happening inside your own skull, and you're losing because you don't even realize you're at war. Your greatest enemy isn't the economy, the competition, or your circumstances. It's the voice in your head that sounds exactly like you, that knows precisely which buttons to push, that whispers the most convincing lies at the exact moment you're most vulnerable. That voice is a master manipulator. It tells you that today doesn't matter, that you can start fresh tomorrow. It reminds you how hard you've already worked, how much you deserve a break. It points out all the reasons why this particular moment is the exception, why the rules don't apply right now. And the most insidious part, it's not wrong about the facts. You have worked hard. You might deserve rest. Today, in isolation, doesn't determine your entire future. But that voice isn't interested in helping you. It's interested in keeping you exactly where you are, because change is terrifying and staying the same is safe. I spent years battling a voice that told me to reveal the truth, to stop the charade, to choose the easier path. Every single day, it offered me rational reasons to give up the mission. And do you know what saved me? Not silencing that voice. That's impossible, but refusing to obey it. Learning to hear the seduction and say, I acknowledge you, and I'm doing this anyway. That's the discipline no one prepares you for. Not the discipline of action, but the discipline of defiance against your own mind's attempts to protect you from discomfort. Your internal enemy knows your weaknesses better than anyone. It knows you'll negotiate. It knows you'll respond to certain justifications. It knows exactly how to frame quitting as wisdom, procrastination as strategy, surrender as self-care. And it will use every trick in its arsenal because its job is to keep you alive, not to help you thrive. Survival and excellence require opposite responses to discomfort. Your primitive mind wants you safe. Your potential demands you venture into danger. This is the war that defines everything. Not the visible battles with deadlines and obstacles, but the invisible war between the person you are and the person you're capable of becoming. And here's what they don't tell you. You don't win this war once. You win it every single morning. Every moment you feel resistance and push forward anyway, you claim territory. Every time you honor your commitment, despite the excuses, you advance. There is no final victory, only the daily choice to refuse the comfortable lies your mind keeps selling you. You've been sold a fairy tale, and it's destroying your potential. They told you to seek balance, to make sure everything gets equal attention. Work, rest, relationships, hobbies, all perfectly calibrated, like some mystical equation that results in happiness and success. It's a beautiful idea. It's also completely worthless if you actually want to achieve something extraordinary. Let me be exceptionally clear. Mastery requires imbalance. It demands obsession. It asks you to tilt your entire existence toward one objective with such singular focus that everyone around you questions your sanity. You cannot build an empire in your spare time. You cannot master a craft by giving it whatever energy remains after you've satisfied everyone else's expectations. The people who changed the world, who created art that endures, who built things that matter, they didn't have balance. They had purpose, so consuming that balance became irrelevant. Does this mean you abandon everything else? No. But it means you stop pretending that mediocrity in 10 areas is somehow superior to excellence in 2. It means you choose what matters and you give it everything, understanding that seasons of intensity are where transformation happens. There were years where my life was nothing but potions, dark magic, and survival. No hobbies, no leisure, no comfortable evenings by the fire. Was it balanced? Absolutely not. Was it necessary? Without question. And the capability I built during those imbalanced years became the foundation for everything that followed. Here's the trap. Balance feels responsible. It feels mature. It lets you tell yourself you're being reasonable while secretly ensuring you never commit fully to anything. Because full commitment is terrifying. It means you might fail spectacularly at the one thing you decided mattered most. Better to hedge your bets, spread yourself thin. So when nothing exceptional happens, you can blame the lack of time rather than lack of courage. The discipline that changes lives isn't about distributing your energy equally. It's about the courage to be strategically imbalanced. To say, for this season, this is everything, and pour yourself into it with abandon. To disappoint some people because serving everyone means serving no one, including yourself. The guilt you feel for choosing, that's just another voice trying to keep you average. Ignore it. Extraordinary results require extraordinary focus. And extraordinary focus looks like obsession to people who've never achieved anything worth remembering. Nobody tells you how lonely discipline becomes. They sell you the highlight reel, the victory, the moment of triumph when everyone finally sees what you've built. But they conveniently omit the thousands of hours you'll spend alone, working while others sleep, sacrificing while others celebrate, choosing the hard right over the easy wrong when there's no audience to witness your integrity. Excellence is a solitary pursuit, not because you're antisocial, but because most people simply won't understand why you can't join them, why you're turning down invitations, why you're not available for distractions disguised as opportunities, why you seem so serious about something they consider optional. They'll call you obsessed, antisocial, no fun anymore. And they're not entirely wrong. You have changed. You've chosen a path that diverges from comfort. and that choice creates distance between you and everyone still traveling the conventional road. I walked the corridors of Hogwarts, surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. Not a single person could know the truth of what I carried, what I sacrificed, what I endured in silence. That isolation wasn't a tragic side effect. It was a requirement. Some missions can only be completed alone, because the weight of them would crush anyone you tried to bring along. Your mission might not involve life and death, but the principle remains. If you're building something real, something that demands everything you have, you'll spend significant time in your own company. Learn to make peace with that. Here's what saves you: purpose. When you're clear on why you're doing this, when the mission matters more than the comfort, solitude transforms from punishment into privilege. Those quiet hours become sacred. The time alone becomes when you do your best work, your deepest thinking, your most significant progress. You stop resenting the isolation and start protecting it, because you understand that excellence requires space that crowds destroy. And eventually, something remarkable happens. You discover that you're not actually alone. You find others on similar paths, people who understand the cost because they're paying it too. Not many, mind you. Excellence is a sparsely populated road, but the connections you form with fellow travelers, they're forged in mutual respect for what it takes to walk this path. Surface friendships built on convenience fade. Deep bonds built on shared understanding of sacrifice emerge. You lose quantity, you gain quality, and you realize that was the trade worth making all along. The question isn't whether you can handle the solitude, it's whether what you're building is worth it. If the answer is yes, the loneliness becomes irrelevant. If the answer is no, you are never going to make it anyway. You're going to fail, not might, not possibly, will. You're going to break your streak, miss your deadline, fall short of your standard, abandon your discipline for a day, a week, maybe longer. And in that moment, everything I've told you will be tested by a single question. What happens after you fall? This is where most people's discipline dies, not in the initial failure, but in what they do next. They miss one workout and decide they've ruined everything, so they might as well quit entirely. They break their diet and transform one poor choice into a weekend of destruction. They skip one day of writing and convince themselves the whole project was foolish anyway. The failure isn't the problem. The narrative they construct around it is. They take a moment of weakness and use it as evidence of permanent inadequacy. Let me tell you something about falling. I made mistakes that cost lives, not metaphorically, actually. The weight of those failures would have crushed me if I'd allowed them to define my capability. But here's what I learned in the aftermath of catastrophe. Your resilience isn't measured by your ability to maintain perfection. It's measured by how quickly you return to the path after you've stumbled off it. The gap between failure and recommitment, that's the only metric that actually matters. Discipline isn't the absence of failure. It's the refusal to let failure become your identity. It's waking up the day after you've completely blown it and doing the thing anyway. Not because you feel motivated, not because you've forgiven yourself, but because the work continues regardless of yesterday's performance. This is the resurrection protocol nobody teaches you. You don't need to feel ready to start again. You don't need to wait for Monday or the first of the month or some arbitrary fresh start. You just need to do the next right thing right now, and let that action be the reset. The voice in your head will try to make this complicated. It will insist you need to understand why you failed, process the emotions, create a new plan. Sometimes, yes, but more often, you need to stop thinking and start moving. Action is the antidote to shame. Forward momentum silences the inner critic better than any affirmation or analysis ever could. You failed. Noted. Now what are you doing about it in the next 60 seconds? Your discipline will be defined not by your longest streak, but by your shortest recovery time. How fast can you go from fallen to fighting? That's the real measure of strength. Here's something you haven't considered. Every action you take today echoes into a future you'll never see. The discipline you practice now, or fail to practice, doesn't just affect you. It creates a template, a legacy, a pattern that ripples outward in ways you cannot predict or control. The children watching you, the colleagues observing your work ethic, the version of yourself that will exist 10 years from now, built entirely on the choices you're making right now in the dark. You think discipline is about achieving your goals. How short-sighted. Discipline is about becoming the kind of person whose very existence raises the standard for everyone in proximity. It's about demonstrating that excellence is possible, that commitment still matters, that integrity hasn't gone extinct in a world obsessed with shortcuts. Every time you do the difficult thing when no one's watching, you're not just building your own character. You are proving something to the universe about what humans are capable of. I never had children, but I taught hundreds of students, and the ones who actually learned something. They didn't just absorb potion recipes. They observed how mastery looks in action, how precision matters, how shortcuts kill, how excellence demands everything and apologizes for nothing. Years after they left my classroom, some of them wrote to tell me they still hear my voice when they're tempted to do sloppy work, to take the easy path, to compromise their standards. That's inheritance, not genetic, but perhaps more powerful because it's chosen. What are you teaching through your actions? When you quit, when you make excuses, when you choose comfort over commitment, you're broadcasting a message. This is acceptable. This is normal. This is how people operate. And someone, somewhere, is learning from your example, whether you intend it or not. Your children, your team, your future self, scrolling through old journals and wondering why you never became who you claimed you wanted to be. But here's the redemptive truth. Every moment is an opportunity to change the inheritance you're creating. The past is written, the future remains blank, and the present, it's the only place where transformation actually occurs. You cannot undo yesterday's laziness, but you can make today a monument to discipline. You cannot reclaim lost time, but you can ensure that years from now, someone looks at your example and thinks, That's who I want to become. The magic of discipline isn't just personal transformation. It's creating a legacy of what's possible when someone refuses to surrender to mediocrity. What will you leave behind? So here we are, at the end of words and the beginning of choice. Everything I've told you is useless unless you do something with it. And I suspect most of you won't. You'll nod along, feel momentarily inspired, maybe even save this for later. Then tomorrow will come with its familiar comforts and convenient excuses, and you'll slip right back into the patterns that brought you here. That's not cynicism. That's probability. Transformation is rare because it requires something most people simply refuse to give. But some of you, a precious few, will hear this differently. You'll recognize that I'm not offering motivation. Motivation is fleeting, a sugar rush that crashes the moment difficulty arrives. I'm offering you something far more dangerous. Permission to demand more from yourself than anyone else ever has. Permission to stop negotiating with your own potential. Permission to build a life so disciplined, so intentional, so relentlessly focused that it makes everyone around you uncomfortable because it forces them to confront their own compromises. The magic of discipline is that it doesn't care about your past. It doesn't care that you've failed 1,000 times before. It doesn't care about your circumstances, your limitations, or the hand you were dealt. Discipline is the great equalizer, available to anyone willing to pay the price. And the price, it's simple. Show up, do the work, repeat when it's hard, when it's boring, when no one's watching and nothing's working, and every logical reason says to quit. That's when discipline transforms from concept into character. I survived impossible odds not because I was special, but because I refused to surrender to what was comfortable. I made choices in the darkness that no one will ever know about, that earned no recognition, that looked like nothing to everyone who wasn't paying attention. And those invisible choices built something that couldn't be broken by circumstance or crushed by adversity. That's available to you too. Not the specific mission, but the forging, the becoming, the alchemy of turning ordinary moments into extraordinary character through nothing more mystical than consistent, unglamorous commitment. So let me leave you with this. A year from now, you'll wish you had started today. That's not a cliché. That's mathematics. Time passes whether you use it or waste it. The only question is who you'll be when it does. Will you be someone who finally stopped talking and started building? Or will you be exactly where you are now, older but no wiser, still waiting for the perfect moment that never comes? The wand is in your hand. It's always been there. The question was never whether you had the power. It was whether you had the discipline to use it. Now, stop listening to me and go prove something to yourself. The only magic that matters is the kind you create through action. Everything else is just pretty words dissolving into forgotten air. What will you do with your next hour? Because that's where your future is actually built, not in grand declarations, but in the unremarkable moment happening right now. Choose wisely, or don't. Either way, you'll live with the consequences of who you're becoming with every breath. The rest, as they say, is up to you.